Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. The India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit has begun in New Delhi. Let's cut across live and take a look at what's happening there. Well, there you have it. Of course, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on your screens there, all set to address the plenary session of the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit. Let's not forget all 10 ASEAN heads of state are present in India at the moment. And of course, the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit is due to begin in a short while from now. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the plenary session. All these 10 heads of states will be the chief guests for tomorrow's Republic Day parade, and it will be a historic occasion as this will be for the first time in history where 10 chief guests will be present for the Republic Day parade, and all these 10 heads of states from the ASEAN countries will be present to witness the historic Republic Day parade beginning in the morning tomorrow. There you can see, of course, the heads of state of the 10 countries taking their place at the round table. Prime Minister Modi, of course, present there as well and presiding over everything that's taking place.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, Your Majesty, Excellencies, I'm delighted to welcome you all to the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit. Though we are celebrating 25 years of our partnership, our shared voyage goes back thousands of years. It is a privilege for India to host all the ASEAN leaders for the second time in 5 years. Tomorrow, you will be our honored guest at our Republic Day celebrations. The presence of my brothers and sisters from all over ASEAN partners at this joyous celebration is unprecedented. Your collective presence here has also touched the hearts of my 1.25 billion fellow Indians. It highlights the importance of our strategic partnership, placing ASEAN at the center of India's Act East policy. Our friendship has been nurtured by our shared cultural and civilizational linkages. The Ramayana, the ancient India epic, continues to be a valuable shared legacy in ASEAN and the Indian subcontinent. We have organized a Ramayana festival with troops from ASEAN countries to showcase our common cultural treasure through this great epic. Other major religions, including Buddhism, also bind us closely. Islam, in many parts of Southeast Asia, has distinctive Indian connection going back several centuries. We have also released a set of commemorative stamps to celebrate our common heritage. Your Majesty, Excellencies, this summit is the grand finale of our joint year-long commemorative activities organized in India and in ASEAN countries, which provides us a valuable opportunity to review our journey so far and chart our future path. This objective, in my view, is best served through free and friendly discussion among us. Your Majesty, Excellencies, since 1992, Our partnership has evolved from sectoral dialogue to strategic partnership. Today we have third sectoral dialogue mechanism and 7 ministerial level interaction in addition to annual summit meetings. We have made excellent progress in implementing the objective of the ASEAN-India partnership for peace, progress and shared prosperity through 5-year plan of action. The progress in implementing our third action plan for the period of 2016-2020 is commendable. Capacity building projects have been undertaken through the ASEAN-India Cooperation Fund, the ASEAN-India Green Fund and ASEAN-India Science and Technology Fund. Your Majesty, Excellencies, India shares ASEAN vision to peace and prosperity through a rules-based order for the oceans and seas. Respect for international law, notably UNCLOS, is critical for this. We remain committed to work with ASEAN to enhance practical cooperation and collaboration in our shared maritime domain. During the retreat session, we had an opportunity to discuss ASEAN-India cooperation in maritime domain as one of the key focus areas of growth and development of the Indo-Pacific region. Indeed, maritime cooperation has been an integral part of our discourse throughout our commemorative activities, with the theme resonating in the ASEAN-India Connectivity Summit, in the workshop of Blue Economy, as well as in regular dialogue mechanisms. Humanitarian and disaster relief efforts, security cooperation, and freedom of navigation will be key focus area for our maritime cooperation. The Connectivity Summit was also an affirmation of the linkage that India shares with ASEAN through land, maritime, cultural, civilization, and people-to-people relations that date back centuries. Your Majesty, Excellencies, information and communication technology will forge new bonds of digital connectivity among us. This could include new areas of cooperation in a regional high-capacity fiber optic network and a national rural broadband network to digitally connect remote areas. India offers to undertake a pilot project on rural connectivity, which would create digital village in Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Success of this project could be replicated in other ASEAN countries. We also offer a training program on telecom and networking technologies to share best practices in policy, regulation, and technological development for information and communication technology professionals from ASEAN countries. In order to deepen our understanding and cooperation in financial matters, I propose a dialogue on digital financial inclusion and investment promotion and infrastructure. Combating terror financing jointly is yet another important area where we could work collectively. Your Majesty, Excellencies, our $70 billion trade has grown 25 times over 25 years. Investment from ASEAN and India are robust and growing. We will continue to work with ASEAN to further enhance our trade ties and facilitate interaction among our business community. The success of recent events like the Business and Investment Meet and Expo, the ASEAN-India Business Council meeting, in Business Conference, the Startup Festival and Hackathon, and at ICT Expo have shown encouraging results. We hope that our Project Development Fund and quick impact project will help our companies integrate into regional value chain, particularly in textile and garment, pharmaceuticals, agro-processing, and electronics. Your Majesty, Excellencies, people-to-people connectivity has been the foundation of our close ties for hundreds of years. The Indian diaspora has settled far and wide in Southeast Asia. They are warmly accepted in the local community. Earlier this month, the ASEAN-India Pravasi Bharatiya Divas in Singapore recognized their contribution in forging closer ties between us. Held at the same time in New Delhi, at the first conference of members of parliament and mayors with Indian heritage, there was a large representation from ASEAN countries. To build on our historical bonds, I propose that we declare 2019 as the ASEAN-India Year of Tourism. We could set up tangible and intangible cultural heritage circuits for further promotion, further to promote tourism. The Buddhist tourism circuit could be an important part of this to attract tourists and pilgrims from our region. Your Majesty, Excellencies, India had participated in restoration works to historical structure which attest our enduring civilization bonds. It was privilege for India to play a role in conservation works of temples in Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos PDR, and Vietnam. A virtual knowledge portal of ASEAN-India network of museums could be to curate this shared heritage. An important focus, our commemorative events celebrate the power of our youth, our future. The Youth Summit, the Artist Residency, the Musical Festival, and the Startup Festival for Digital Commerce among our youth were intent for this. We have given a boost to their spirit by giving Youth Award on 24th January. To further empower our youth in our region, I have the pleasure to announce 1,000 fellowships to students and researchers from ASEAN countries for studying integrated PhD programs in Indian Institute of Technology, India's premier institution of imparting knowledge. We would also like to offer dedicated training courses at the Indian Academy of Highway Engineers for ASEAN highway professionals. I also propose that we set up a network of universities to encourage greater inter-university exchanges. Your Majesty, Excellency, in conclusion, let me again join my people in expressing our profound appreciation to each one of you for kindly accepting my invitation and for joining us at this commemorative summit. I now invite Prime Minister of the Republic of Singapore, His Excellency Lee Hsien Loong, to please deliver the opening remarks in Singapore's capacity as the ASEAN Chair for 2018 and the co-chair for this plenary session.
Thank you, Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi of India, Your Majesty and my fellow ASEAN leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to co-chair this plenary session of our ASEAN-India Summit as the ASEAN Chair together with Prime Minister Modi. On behalf of ASEAN, I would like to thank India for organizing the numerous commemorative activities for the 25th anniversary of our relations. I'd also express my appreciation for Prime Minister Modi's invitation to the ASEAN member states' leaders to attend tomorrow's 69th Republic Day celebrations as India's chief guest. These gestures show the importance India places on the strengthening of ASEAN-India relations. I would also like to thank Vietnam for its role as the country coordinator of ASEAN-India dialogue relations. Today, we mark 25 years of relations between ASEAN and India and 5 years of our strategic partnership. These milestones are an opportunity to celebrate our achievements and chart our way forward. India's ties with Southeast Asia go back far beyond 25 years. Our early interactions were driven by trade and commerce. Artifacts like glass beads and semi-precious stones from southern India have been found in the Malay Peninsula, which are dated as early as the 4th century BC. Both sides also share deep cultural links. The Indian diaspora continues to play an important part in shaping our region and in ASEAN-India relations. About 1/5 of the 31 million overseas Indians live in Southeast Asia, and they've made major contributions in building institutions, national cultures, and identities in their respective countries. This is why Singapore and other ASEAN member states have supported India's dialogue partnership and its entry into the East Asia Summit. We believe that India makes a major contribution to regional affairs, helping to keep the regional architecture open, balanced, and inclusive. There's much more we can do to take the ASEAN-India dialogue partnership forward. One step we can take is to increase our trade and economic cooperation. There is significant potential for further growth. Southeast Asia and India together represent a quarter of the world's population, about 1.8 billion people, and a combined GDP of more than $4.5 trillion. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, the RCEP, which is currently being negotiated by ASEAN, India, and other partners, represents a historic opportunity to establish the world's largest trading bloc, which would enable our businesses to harness the region's true potential. Expanding connectivity, air, land, maritime, and digital connectivity, is also important for growth. It will reinforce business and people-to-people links between the two sides and benefit both our peoples. These are just some of the areas where we can develop our relationship. I look forward to exchanging these and other ideas with Prime Minister Modi and my fellow ASEAN leaders during this plenary session to examine how we can further strengthen our strategic partnership in the years to come. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Prime Minister Lee, for your intervention. And with this, I would now request for the media to please leave the hall. We shall begin with a closed session.
Well, there you have it, of course. The plenary session of the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit has begun. The address there being given by Prime Minister Modi, and then, of course, the chair for 2018 for ASEAN countries, the president of Singapore, in fact, addressing the gathering and also thanking India for inviting the 10 ASEAN countries to be the chief guests of the Republic Day Parade, which will be held on the 26th of January, which is tomorrow. Of course, these are visuals from earlier in the day. They are not live visuals, of course, of the Indian dignitaries meeting the visiting dignitaries, the President and Vice President welcoming all the visiting dignitaries. The Prime Minister also present there to welcome the 10 ASEAN heads of state. The meeting, of course, has begun, and now the summit, I beg your pardon, has begun, and now the 10 ASEAN countries and India will be holding a closed-door meeting and will discuss, of course, several issues Prime Minister Modi, in his opening address, already listed out some of the issues that could possibly be discussed at this closed-door meeting. He said the key focus areas going forward would be ASEAN-India maritime cooperation, security cooperation, and he also stressed on freedom of movement. Of course, Prime Minister Modi went on to talk about how there could be new areas of cooperation in the field of information and communication technology. He said information and communication technology will offer several new areas of cooperation between India and the ASEAN countries. Joining me live to talk more about this is our Foreign Affairs correspondent, of course, Akhilesh Suman, joining us right now. Akhilesh Suman, we just heard what the Prime Minister had to say, and we also saw the chair of the ASEAN bloc, which is the head of state of Singapore, also addressing the gathering. Very key focus areas there listed by Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah, Frank, as you were also hearing, the Prime Minister was specifically mentioning the areas like cultural linkage. He specifically named Ramayana tradition, Buddhism, also Islam prevalent both in India and ASEAN nations. So this was his major first opening thrust, that India and ASEAN nations are closely associated with the culture, with the religion, that is common between both India and the whole ASEAN region. And another thing that the Prime Minister was focusing on, you understand that he was mentioning the law of international law, following the international law. That was specifically mentioning the whole situation in South China Sea, that because of Chinese attitude, all of ASEAN nations feel threatened that they might be bullied. Not only in trade issues, but also in security. And that is why they always refer towards India, they always see towards India for security issues. And the Prime Minister specifically assured that India will be present in this region, and India wants peace and stability in the whole region. And also Prime Minister focused that, the way the trade negotiations are going on, there is a great possibility that need to be exploited. And I think that every ASEAN leader is very much convinced that India and ASEAN should intensify their trade relations and also intensify their security cooperation, so that there should be no monopolistic and hegemonistic attitude prevailing in those areas.
You know, talking about trade, the Prime Minister, Akhilesh, did talk about how trade has increased 25-fold in the last 25 years since we've had diplomatic ties with the ASEAN bloc. Of course, he also did mention about how there is tremendous scope to take these ties further as well. One area that he specifically pointed out was the tourism sector. He said 2019 will be the ASEAN-India year of tourism. So clearly, focus going forward, of course, will be on maritime security as well as tourism too.
Yeah, that's why Prime Minister specifically mentioned three religions in India, prevalent in both ASEAN and India, like Buddhism. Buddhism has been known for years that Buddhists from ASEAN nations come and visit to India. But now with the prevalence of, given prominence of Ramayana tradition between India and ASEAN nation, most of the ASEAN nations, Prime Minister hopes that other than Buddhism, people from ASEAN nations should also come to visit the Hindu deities and Hindu temples, and as well as Islamic mosques are also very much prevalent present in India. So this might be also a major tourist attraction between both. And also, you know, that ASEAN nations also expect Indian tourists to go, because the number of tourists from India to ASEAN nations is very limited. It is not increasing as expected. And Prime Minister mentioned that India had worked in Cambodia, Laos and Myanmar for rebuilding the temples, and it will be replicated in other ASEAN nations also. So there is a specific context, because you need to increase people-to-people contacts, people-to-people cooperation and understanding of each other regions, because we did have a historically very common connection. But for years, specifically after independence, for a long time, both ASEAN and India was seeking their own fate and they were running their own way. ASEAN nations went into the American bloc and India was basically in Soviet bloc. So there was certain distance between both, and because of that, we also had some sort of differences with ASEAN nations. We used to call Coca-Cola bloc when ASEAN was formed. But after we realized that no, this region is very important, not only for reviving the cultural collection, but also for strategic issues, because the way India is trying to project its might all over the world, and the way India's ambitions is growing, specifically to get a rightful place in United Nations. So you need to connect with all the countries that you can connect with, and ASEAN is one major bloc that you can connect with. And once you go to ASEAN, you have East Asian countries also.
Sure.
It is the extension of ASEAN. So Prime Minister very meticulously tries to win the heart and mind of ASEAN nations and ASEAN heads of government in that way. Frank.
All right. Akhilesh Suman, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us there with all those details. Well, that, of course, was our Foreign Affairs editor speaking to us and putting things into perspective for us as far as what's happening there at the summit and what the summit will have in store for us in the days to come as well. That's it from me on this edition of the news at 6. Do stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television.